Madrid, Spain, April 12, 1680. María Gonzalez stood in the Plaza Mayor wearing a yellow robe with a red cross painted on the back. She wasn't allowed to take it off. Not to sleep. Not to work. Not even to attend her daughter's funeral. She'd been wearing it for 3 months. And she'd wear it for the rest of her life. The robe had a name, the Sanbenito. And it was worse than torture. Let me tell you why. Maria hadn't been convicted of anything. She'd been accused, by her neighbor, a woman named Elena who wanted Maria's bakery shop. The accusation was simple. Maria had been seen talking to a Jewish merchant. In 1680 Spain, that was enough. The Spanish Inquisition arrested Maria. They questioned her for 3 days. No torture. No violence. Just questions. Did you speak with the Jewish merchant? Yes, he bought bread from my shop. Did you discuss matters of faith? No, we discussed bread. Are you certain? Yes, I'm certain. After 3 days, they released her. Not because they believed her, because they had a better punishment in mind. They gave her the Sanbenito. And that yellow robe with the red cross destroyed Maria's life more completely than any torture device ever could. I'm your host at Ash and Crown History, where we tell the stories that reveal uncomfortable truths about power, control, and human nature. Today's story is about the Spanish Inquisition's most devastating weapon. Not the rack, not the strappado, not the burning stakes. It was a piece of yellow clothing. And what it did to people was far more cruel than any physical torture. If you want to understand how public humiliation can be weaponized more effectively than violence, how shame can destroy more completely than pain, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because Maria's story is just the beginning. And what you're about to discover will change how you see social punishment, cancel culture, and the terrible power of public shame. The Sanbenito killed Maria slowly, over months and years, without ever touching her body. Let me show you exactly how it worked. Part 1. The invention of permanent shame. Seville, Spain, 1481. Tomás de Torquemada had a problem. He'd been appointed Grand Inquisitor of Spain with one job: root out hidden Jews and heretics. But there was a complication. Torture was getting expensive and time-consuming, and it required specialized equipment and trained personnel. Torquemada needed something cheaper, more efficient, something that would terrify people into compliance without requiring the Inquisition to actually do anything. He needed a weapon that victims would carry themselves, a punishment that would last forever without requiring prison cells or guards. So he invented the Sanbenito. The word comes from Sacco Bendito, blessed sack. It was a knee-length yellow tunic, painted with flames, demons, and crosses. The design varied based on the crime. Yellow with red crosses equals suspected heretic, like Maria. Yellow with flames pointing down equals confessed and reconciled, with the church yellow with flames pointing up equals unrepentant heretic destined for burning. The genius of the Sanbenito wasn't the robe itself. It was what happened after you put it on. You couldn't take it off. Ever. The Inquisition's orders were specific. Wear the Sanbenito at all times. To work. To church. To the market. To sleep. If you were caught without it, you'd be arrested again. This time for real torture. But here's the truly diabolical part. After you died, the Sanbenito would be hung in your parish church, with your name sewn onto it. Forever. Your children would see it. Your grandchildren. Your great-grandchildren. The shame would outlive you by generations. Torquemada had created a punishment that was cheaper than imprisonment, more visible than execution, and literally eternal. And it destroyed lives more effectively than any torture device ever could. Subscribe to Ash and Crown History if you want to understand how systems create eternal punishments without courts or trials. Because the Sanbenito is the template for every modern shame-based punishment system, from sex offender registries to social media cancellations. Hit subscribe, this pattern still exists. Let me show you what happened to the people who wore it. Part 2. The slow death of María Gonzalez. Back to Maria, standing in the Plaza Mayor in her yellow robe. Month 1. The isolation. Maria tried to keep working at her bakery. She'd been baking bread in that shop for 15 years. Her customers knew her, trusted her. But the morning after she was given the Sanbenito, something changed. Her first customer, a woman named Isabella who'd been buying bread from Maria for a decade, walked in, saw the yellow robe, and turned around without a word. The second customer did the same. Then the third. Then the fourth. By noon, Maria was standing in an empty shop surrounded by unsold bread. Her bread hadn't changed. Her skill hadn't changed. But she was wearing the Sanbenito, and that meant she was tainted, contaminated, dangerous. By the end of the week, Maria's shop was empty. No customers. No income. No way to pay rent. Month 2. The stigma spreads. Maria's daughter, Catalina, was engaged to be married. Her fiancé, Diego, came from a respectable family. The wedding was planned for June. Diego's parents came to Maria's house 1 week after she received the Sanbenito. "The engagement is cancelled," Diego's father said. "My son cannot marry into a family under investigation by the Inquisition. I'm sure you understand." Catalina begged. She'd done nothing wrong. Her mother had done nothing wrong. Diego's father was unmoved. "Your mother wears the Sanbenito. That makes your entire family suspect. The wedding is cancelled." The engagement ended. Catalina never married. She died unmarried at age 54, her marriage prospects destroyed by a yellow robe her mother had been forced to wear. Month 3. The death. Maria's husband, Juan, worked as a carpenter. Good man. Skilled craftsman. He'd been employed by the same workshop for 20 years. One morning, his master called him aside. "Juan, you're a good worker. But your wife, the Sanbenito, customers are uncomfortable. I have to let you go." Juan argued, begged, reminded his master of 20 years of loyal service. "I'm sorry, Juan, but business is business. Your wife wears the mark of the Inquisition. I can't risk my reputation." Juan lost his job. Couldn't find another one. No one would hire a man married to a woman in a Sanbenito. He started drinking, got into fights, fell into depression. For months after Maria received the Sanbenito, Juan hanged himself in their home. Maria found his body. She couldn't attend his funeral wearing the Sanbenito. The priest refused to let her enter the church. So she stood outside in the rain, watching through the window as they buried her husband. Month 6. The confession. Maria was broken. Her business destroyed. Her daughter's marriage cancelled. Her husband dead. She went to the Inquisition's office and confessed to everything they wanted. She admitted speaking with Jews about faith, admitted questioning Catholic doctrine, admitted things she'd never done, never even thought about. She signed papers, denounced herself, named other heretics, innocent people whose lives she'd now destroyed just as hers had been destroyed. The Inquisition accepted her confession, declared her reconciled with the church, and gave her a new Sanbenito. This one had flames painted on it pointing downward, signifying that she'd confessed and been forgiven. She still couldn't take it off. María Gonzalez died 3 years later, age 47. She was wearing the Sanbenito when she died. It was hung in her parish church with her name sewn into it. It hung there for 120 years, until Napoleon's troops destroyed the church in 1808. Maria's great-great-grandchildren grew up seeing her Sanbenito hanging in the church, a permanent reminder that their ancestor had been investigated by the Inquisition. The shame outlived Maria by 4 generations. This is what the Sanbenito did. Not torture, not execution, just a yellow robe that you couldn't take off. And it destroyed lives more completely than any physical violence ever could. If you're starting to see how public marking creates permanent underclasses, how visible shame destroys more completely than hidden punishment, you need to stay subscribed to Ash and Crown History, because this mechanism is still being used today, just with different marks. Hit subscribe right now. But Maria's story raises a question. Why was the Sanbenito so effective? Why did a piece of cloth destroy her life when torture might not have? The answer lies in the psychology of public shame. Part 3. The theater of shame. The Spanish Inquisition understood something crucial about human psychology. Public shame is more powerful than private pain. Here's why. Physical torture ends. Your body heals. The pain fades. Eventually, you can move on. Public shame never ends. Every person you meet sees the mark. Every interaction reminds you. The shame reinforces itself thousands of times per day. The Sanbenito turned every citizen into an enforcer. The Inquisition didn't need to punish Maria. Her neighbors did it for them. Her customers. Her daughter's fiancé. Her husband's employer. The Inquisition created a self-perpetuating system of social control. And they did it through theater. Let me show you how the performance worked. The auto de fe, the grand finale. The auto de fe, Act of Faith, was the Spanish Inquisition's greatest theatrical production. Imagine this, the town square in Madrid, 1680. A massive wooden stage has been constructed. Thousands of people have gathered. Attendance is mandatory. On the stage, 50 people wearing Sanbenitos. Some are trembling. Some are crying. Some have already broken and stare at nothing, their minds gone. The Grand Inquisitor stands at a podium. He reads from a scroll. Each name, each crime, each sentence. Some are reconciled. They'll wear the Sanbenito for life but won't be executed. Others are relaxed to the secular arm, handed over to civil authorities for burning. The crowd watches. Some cheer. Some weep. Some just stare, terrified that they might be next. This is theater, carefully choreographed, designed for maximum psychological impact. The message is clear. The Inquisition is everywhere. No one is safe. Conform or be destroyed. But here's what makes this theater truly insidious. The audience becomes complicit. By watching, by attending, by remaining silent. Every person in that crowd becomes part of the machinery of oppression. They see the Sanbenitos. They learn what behaviors are dangerous. They police themselves and their neighbors. The Inquisition doesn't need spies. The entire population becomes informants. Because everyone knows, better to accuse than to be accused. Subscribe to Ash and Crown History if you want to understand how spectacle becomes social control. Because the auto de fe is the template for every public shaming ritual, from medieval pillories to modern cancel campaigns. This pattern repeats. Hit subscribe. Now let me tell you about the man who perfected this system. Part 4. The man who turned shame into science. Tomás de Torquemada, 1483. Torquemada wasn't a sadist. That's what makes him so terrifying. He was an administrator, a bureaucrat, a man who saw punishment as a management problem that required systematic solutions. Before Torquemada, the Inquisition was chaotic. Some accused heretics were tortured. Others were executed. Others were released. There was no consistency. Torquemada brought order. He wrote manuals, created procedures, standardized punishments, and he recognized something crucial. Torture is expensive and inefficient. Think about it. Torture requires trained personnel, special equipment, private facilities, and it only punishes one person at a time. The Sanbenito required none of that. It was cheap, just yellow cloth and paint. It required no guards, the victim policed themselves. And it punished not just one person but entire families for generations. Torquemada had created a punishment that was cheap, no ongoing costs, permanent, lasted lifetime plus generations, visible, everyone could see it, self-enforcing. Society punished the victim, scalable, could be applied to thousands simultaneously. From a management perspective, it was brilliant. From a human perspective, it was monstrous. Torquemada's innovation was to realize that the most effective punishment is the one that makes everyone else afraid too. Physical torture punishes one person. The Sanbenito punishes one person and terrifies thousands. By the time Torquemada died in 1498, he'd overseen the issuance of over 2,000 Sanbenitos. Each one destroyed a family, shamed a lineage, terrorized a community. His system would continue for another 300 plus years. If you're disturbed by how efficiently bureaucrats can systematize cruelty, you need to stay subscribed. Because Torquemada's template, turning punishment into management, cruelty into process, repeats throughout history. We show you how to recognize it. Hit subscribe now. But the Sanbenito didn't affect everyone equally. Some people suffered more than others. Let me show you who. Part 5. Who wore the yellow? The Sanbenito targeted specific groups. And understanding who wore it reveals what the Spanish Inquisition was really about. Conversos. The primary targets conversos were Jews who'd converted to Christianity. Sometimes voluntarily. Often under threat of expulsion or death. The Spanish Inquisition's stated purpose was to root out false converts. Conversos who'd publicly converted but privately maintained Jewish practices. But here's what actually happened. Conversos became a permanent underclass. Even if you genuinely converted. Even if you were devout Catholic for 40 years. Even if you'd never practiced Judaism in your life, if your parents or grandparents had been Jewish, you could be investigated. An investigation meant Sanbenito, which meant destruction. Take the case of Luis de Carvajal. Born in Portugal to converso parents. Genuinely devout Catholic. Spent his entire life as a practicing Christian. At age 40, someone accused him of secretly practicing Judaism. The evidence? He'd lit candles on Friday night. Friday was when he happened to light candles. Pure coincidence. Luis received a Sanbenito. His business collapsed. His children couldn't marry. His family name was ruined. He died wearing it. His children emigrated to Mexico to escape the shame. The Sanbenito didn't punish heresy. Punished ethnic heritage. Women, the convenient targets. 80 of Sanbenito recipients were women. Why? Not because women were more heretical. Because they were more vulnerable. A widowed woman with property was an easy target. Accuse her of heresy. Give her a Sanbenito. Watch her property be confiscated by the church. A woman who challenged authority, spoke out, questioned priests, acted inappropriately, could be silenced with a Sanbenito. The Inquisition's records show a clear pattern. Women who owned property, women who were independent, women who were inconvenient were disproportionately targeted. The Sanbenito was a tool of social control disguised as religious enforcement. The poor, the profitable targets, the wealthy could buy their way out. Make donations to the church. Hire lawyers. Appeal to influential friends. The poor had no such options. And once you wore the Sanbenito, you became poorer. Couldn't work, couldn't support your family, couldn't escape. The Sanbenito created a permanent underclass. People marked for life, unable to rise, forced to live on the margins. And their children inherited the shame. And their children's children. Social mobility became impossible. The stigma was eternal. This is what the Sanbenito really was, a system for creating and maintaining permanent inequality. Subscribe to Ash and Crown History if you want to understand how shame becomes inherited social status. Because this mechanism, marking certain groups as permanently tainted, repeats across cultures and centuries. We connect the patterns. Hit subscribe. But eventually, the Sanbenito system began to break down. Let me tell you how. Part 6. The beginning of the end. Barcelona, Spain, 1808. Napoleon's troops marched into Spain. And everything changed. The French soldiers saw the Sanbenitos hanging in churches. They asked Spanish locals, "What are these yellow robes?" When they learned the answer, they were horrified. You mark people for life based on accusations? You shame their children and grandchildren? This is barbaric. The French troops went through Spanish churches, systematically destroying Sanbenitos, tearing them down, burning them. Spanish Catholics were outraged. How dare you destroy our sacred markers? But something had shifted. The French occupation forced Spanish society to see the Sanbenito system through outside eyes. And what they saw was shameful. By the time Napoleon was defeated and Spanish sovereignty restored, the Sanbenito system had been fatally weakened. The final Sanbenito was issued in 1834. After 353 years. But the practice of public shaming didn't end. It just changed forms. Subscribe to Ash and Crown History because this is where history becomes uncomfortable, where we connect the past to the present and show you the patterns that still exist. The Sanbenito is gone, but the mechanism remains. Hit subscribe right now. Let me show you what I mean. Part 7. The modern Sanbenito. The Spanish Inquisition ended. The Sanbenito is gone. But the mechanism, permanent public marking that destroys lives and creates underclass status, still exists. Let me give you the pattern to watch for. When a society creates a permanent public mark that can be applied based on accusation rather than conviction, destroys employment prospects, prevents social interaction, affects family members, can never be removed, creates inherited stigma. That's a Sanbenito. Different name. Same mechanism. I'm not going to name specific modern examples, you can think of your own. But consider registries that require public reporting of past crimes, making reintegration impossible, social media posts that follow you forever, affecting employment and relationships, cancelled individuals who can never rehabilitate their reputation, children of criminals who inherit social stigma, ethnic or religious groups marked as suspicious. The tools have changed. The principle hasn't. The Sanbenito teaches us to ask, what punishments do we use that destroy lives more effectively than incarceration? What marks do we place on people that can never be removed? Whose children inherit shame they didn't earn? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're questions about the society we're building right now. María Gonzalez died in 1683. But the system that destroyed her is still running, just with updated branding. Conclusion. The yellow robe that never goes away. Let me take you back to where we started. María Gonzalez, standing in the Plaza Mayor in 1680, wearing a yellow robe she couldn't remove. She wasn't tortured, wasn't imprisoned, wasn't executed. She was just marked, publicly, permanently, and that marking destroyed her life more completely than any physical torture ever could. Her business collapsed, her daughter's marriage cancelled, her husband driven to suicide, her family shamed for 4 generations. All because of a piece of yellow cloth. The Spanish Inquisition discovered something that modern punishment systems are still learning. Physical pain ends. Social shame is eternal. The rack could break your body. The Sanbenito broke your soul, and your children's souls, and your grandchildren's souls. Torquemada didn't invent shame, but he systematized it, made it permanent, turned it into policy. And the template he created, public marking, inherited stigma, community enforcement, permanent underclass creation, that template is still in use. We just don't call it the Sanbenito anymore. If this story changed how you see public punishment, social shame, and the systems we use to permanently mark certain people as other, then you need to be part of the Ash and Crown History community. We don't just tell you what happened in the past. We show you how the same mechanisms are still operating today. We connect the Sanbenitos of medieval Spain to the permanent markings of modern society. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications. And drop a comment. What modern systems create permanent shame? What marks can never be removed? Whose children inherit stigma they didn't earn? Share this video with someone who needs to understand that the cruelest punishments aren't always physical. That shame can destroy more completely than pain. That marks become inherited status. Thank you for watching Ash and Crown History. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll explore more stories about power, control, and the mechanisms that repeat across centuries. María Gonzalez wore a yellow robe for 3 years until she died. That robe hung in a church for 120 years after her death. The shame lasted longer than her life, longer than her children's lives, longer than most buildings. That's the power of public marking. That's the cruelty of permanent shame. The Sanbenito is gone, but the mechanism remains. Stay curious, stay questioning, and remember, the cruelest weapons don't draw blood. Subscribe now. This pattern still exists.